Just a warning, this chapter contains some mature content that may not be suitable for all audiences. I mentioned in the previous video that chapters 18 and 19 are meant to be viewed in parallel. In chapter 18, 3 men appeared to Abraham in the hottest part of the day while he was sitting in the door of his tent in the land of blessing. Now watch this. The 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. Both men are sitting, and the time of day is observed. The angels came to Abraham's door with an announcement of birth and blessing. What announcement will they bring to Lot's door? Now, the fact that he was sitting in the city gate suggests that he had become a leader in the city. We don't know why, but he had a lot of wealth, and sometimes that's all it takes to get into politics. It says, when Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth. In chapter 18, Abraham saw them, ran to meet them, and bowed low. Lot doesn't run, but he shows deference and hospitality. He said, "My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up early and go on your way." They said, "No, we will spend the night in the town square." But he pressed them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. So compared to Abraham's extravagant feast, this seems a little cheap, but I guess we should give Lot a little credit. He brings out the matzah and he invites them in. So he's no Abraham, but compared to everyone else in the city, this guy's like a saint. Remember, Noah was blameless among his generation, and sometimes that bar is really low. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house, and they called to Lot.
"Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we can know them."
I don't believe they're talking about Zumba classes. Presumably, this is a power play. These men want to humiliate the visitors by gang raping them. Yes, Sodom was an awful place. Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said,
"I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly."
And I wish he had stopped there. Good for Lot for speaking out. Good for Lot for putting himself at risk and shutting the door and defending his guests. Those seem like righteous acts. But then he offers them an alternative.
"Behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you.
And do to them as you please. Literally, whatever is good in your eyes."
What's Daddy saying? I don't know. He's probably defending us like Abraham defended him with 318 trained men.
"Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof." How anyone can suggest this is difficult to fathom. Some readers have suggested that Lot could be lying to buy time, or he could even be using a form of sarcasm to highlight the insanity of their proposal. We really don't know what his reasoning was. Not that we need a rationale. These daughters are made in God's image and should be protected. And soon the angels will do just that in spite of Lot's foolishness. But they said,
"Stand back. This fellow came to sojourn and he has become the judge. Only God can judge me."
In chapter 18, Abraham recognizes that God is judge of all, and he appeals to God's mercy. When Lot makes himself judge, he does horrible things like compromise his own daughters. So the men say,
"We'll deal worse with you than with them."
Their intentions came out. They admit that they had been planning to do bad to the angels the whole time.
Get him.
Then they pressed hard against the man Lot and drew near to break the door down. There's more language symmetry here. Lot had pressed the angels to stay, insisting on hospitality. The crowd of men are pressing Lot in a violent way. When they draw near to the door to break it down, it's the same word chapter 18 used of Abraham drawing near to God in prayer. But the men, that's the angels, not the mob, reached out their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door.
"Let's go, Lot." "What do we do now? Forgive and forget?" "No, you idiot, we protect victims."
And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out groping for the door. They were trying to find the door, just like God hoped to find righteous people in Sodom. Then the men said to Lot, "Have you anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone you have in the city, bring them out of the place, for we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against its people has become great before the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it." And Lot believed the warning. So Lot went out and said to his sons-in-law, who were to marry his daughters,
"Guys, get up. The city's about to get nuked."
But he seemed to his sons-in-law to be jesting.
"Yeah, bro, just go ahead and use the toilet." "No, Really? This is fire and brimstone.
Okay, we got it. There's some Pepto in the cabinet.
I'm talking about the judgment of God.
I know, we've all been there. Just spray the room when you're done.
Forget it.
As morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying,
Get up. Go get your wife and daughters if you want to live.
But he lingered. So the men seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him. And they brought him out and set him outside the city. And as they brought them out, one said, Escape for your life. Don't look back or stop anywhere in the valley. And Lot said to them, Oh no, my lords, plural. Behold, your, singular, servant has found favor in your sight, and you, singular, have shown me great kindness in saving my life. This change from the plural form to the singular form in Hebrew is interesting. It seems to me that now Lot recognizes that these men are actually a manifestation of the presence of the one true God. And the clue that he needed to figure that out was when great mercy came into his life and rescued him. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. Zoar means city of refuge. The sun had risen on the earth when Lot came to Zoar. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. In the Noah story we saw God sending rain from the heavens, and now he sends sulfur and fire. And he overthrew those cities and all the valley and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. A reminder that human sin corrupts and pollutes the ground. But Lot's wife behind him looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Looking back is not a matter of seeing the destruction. Her heart was fixed on Sodom. She longed to be back in the city. She wanted the old ways. Was she instantaneously transformed into salt? More likely, her corpse was chemically altered by mineral salts and gases released in the destruction. And Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. And he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the valley. And he looked, and behold, the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace. So it was that when God destroyed the cities of the valley, God remembered, not Lot, he remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived. Now Lot went up out of Zoar and lived in the hills with his 2 daughters, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. Zoar deserved the judgment just like Sodom and Gomorrah. It was only spared because of Lot's whining and God's mercy. It was still a violent and dangerous place. So he lived in a cave with his 2 daughters. Look what his life had become. During the quarrel with Abraham, he chose what was right in his eyes. He went where he wanted to go. He did what he wanted to do. And in the end, he got what he wanted. He had his land. He had his choice. He had his stuff. A cave is a place where the dead are buried. Lot and his daughters were living dead. And the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to come into us after the manner of all the earth. Well, that's not true. There are other cities, but they've lost their fiancés. They've lost their homes, their mother. Grief has a way of clouding our perspective and judgment. And now that they were down and out, it was easier to justify sin. We're going through a hard time. We deserve this. We need some comfort. Come, let's make our father drink wine, and we'll lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father. So they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in and lay with her father. He did not know when she lay down or when she arose. He was blackout drunk, which means that they had a lot of wine available. Apparently they were in a fertile land, surrounded by God's provision. But they saw everything through the lens of loss, so they abused God's provision. The next day the firstborn said to the younger, Behold, I lay last night with my father. Let us make him drink wine tonight also. Then you go in and lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father. So they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. So the man who almost gave his own daughters to be violated by a mob was himself assaulted by them. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. The younger also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites to this day. This is probably not just a polemic against the Moabites and Ammonites. See Deuteronomy 2, 9, and 19, where God warns against bothering these sons of Lot because they have an inheritance there. However, in places like Deuteronomy 23 and Numbers 22, they didn't meet Israel with bread and water. They sent Balaam to curse them, and they were excluded from Israelite worship. Ruth, the Moabitess, is grafted into the family. David comes from this line. Well, after this, Lot drops out of the narrative. We aren't shown his reaction to the situation. We leave him in a land that God gifted him, being taken advantage of by the daughters that he was quick to pawn off to the gang rapists at the beginning of the chapter. What a dark end.